He was wounded, bleeding, and angry, which is a dangerous thing for the enemy, for a Marine to be wounded, dirty, and pissed.
The actions of the 1st Marines to fight their way into Way City on January 31st, 1968 are nothing short of legendary.
The most ferocious fighting machine the world has ever seen is a pissed-off 19-year-old Marine.
If you have the good fortune to talk to any Alpha 11 Marine who fought at Way, there are 2 names you will hear.
Gonzalez and Canley.
Sergeant Gonzalez and Gunnery Sergeant Canley.
Over and over again.
I look back at the Gunny and Sergeant Gonzalez.
Canley and Gonzalez jumped into this open rice paddy.
Sergeant Gonzalez he just a man amongst men. He led just like Gunny did.
He was absolutely fearless, as was Gunny Canley.
Today, I want to tell you a story about 2 Marine Corps legends, all from the battle at Way City. My name is Josh Roe, and this is Tomorrow Town, Tennessee. This is Chapter 5 of our series on the battle for Way and the war in Vietnam. We call this series The Battle That Changed Everything, and we call this episode
Wounded, Bleeding, and Angry.
That was John Legato. And just in case you missed it, he said wounded, bleeding, and angry.
People do not know what happened that way. It was like so much going on. But Gonzalez was a quiet determination.
And the Marine he was talking about, Medal of Honor recipient Sergeant Alfredo Gonzalez. John told me the story of what he witnessed Sergeant Gonzalez do on the first day at Way. And that story is incredible.
When we got hit that first day going in, there were civilians running around. We were capturing prisoners. It was a madhouse.
John Legato, Larry Lewis, Bill Purcell, and Gary Eichler were all young Marines when they arrived in Vietnam in late 1967.
Around the 1st of September of 67.
I got there in November of 1967.
They were all assigned to Alpha 11, Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 1st Marine Division.
So you were pretty green, as we would say, when TET started, I guess on the 31st of January.
Yeah, I was immediately put on a truck with 2 or 3 other guys that flew in with me on a civilian aircraft, which kind of surprised us because we thought we were going into a war zone, which we were.
This is Gary Eichler.
We landed in Da Nang on a commercial airline with flight attendants and the whole thing, and we're looking around and saying, "No, when are they going to start shooting at us?" And we got off. They put us on a truck.
Somehow I came down with a severe case of dysentery.
Bill Purcell.
And they put me in a field hospital near Quaintree.
Driven from Da Nang up to Thien.
My battalion got orders for Thien,
which was at the time the northernmost outpost in South Vietnam, right on the DMZ.
And Thien was a shithole. It was just awful. 3 small hills, nothing but mud.
We were at the siege at Thien in 67, which was bad. We were hit with 400 rounds of mortars and rockets every day. And we did meet the enemy face to face outside the wire there.
When we got to Thien was really eye-opening. I think, I know we're in trouble. I said, this is for real stuff. It's not playing anymore.
It's pitch black in this bunker, and one of my buddies starts screaming at the top of his lungs, and I'm going, "What the hell? They've infiltrated our bunker. I thought we were dead, basically." And so he comes around. I said, "Well, what was it?" It was a rat. A rat crawled over my face. We later learned the rats were about that big.
Gonzalez was sort of quiet. He was only 21.
He was a really, really nice guy. That's one thing I remember about him. And number 2, yes, he was absolutely fearless.
He had finished his tour, and he had been to Vietnam once, and he heard that his unit got hit back in Vietnam.
And I guess he heard or read about a lot of the casualties. One had up in Thien. He volunteered to come back. We left Thien December 23rd. Got back to the Quang Tree area. He joined us when we got to Quang Tree.
We all looked up to him. He was hard-nosed, but he was a heck of a Marine.
Took crap from nobody. And he had a pecking order. If you're at the top of this pecking order, you got to call him G. A little bit lower down, Sergeant G. And the bottom, and there were several, Sergeant Gonzalez. Well, one day with Quang Tree, we're having test firing on machine guns.
Bill Purcell was a machine gunner, carried a M60.
So I'm sitting there with one of my other gunners, Ondo, and about this other platoon gunner came in, and he's trash talking like mad, but because he and Ondo went to gun school together. And I said, Ondo, can he shoot? And he said, hey, he can shoot. Well, they go first. He opens up. Not only is he missing the barrels, he's about 50 feet over the top of the ravine, and there's a big village over there. So, he's raining bullets down on his village. So they pulled them off. They put us up there. And we get up, Mondo and I. We in prone position, we fire, boom, right on target. So G yells, from the hip. So we jumped up and we're firing from the hip, still on target. And no, G didn't yell that. Woody yelled that, up from the hip. So we cease fire. I turn around, and I see Gonzalez jumping up and down, punching the other platoon sergeant in the arm. See, like his guys won. I didn't realize the colonel and his XO were on top of the hill watching all this. So we got back to our area, and he comes over to me and he says, hey, Purcell. I said, yeah, Sergeant G. And he said, no, G. I went to the top of his list.
The fighting at Quang Tree was much less eventful compared to Thien. In fact, these young Marines never really saw Sergeant Gonzalez in combat before they left for Fubai on January 30th.
We had never seen him in action until Way City. So we didn't know what to expect, but he's a good man. Yeah. Good Marine.
On the day Alpha Company was set to leave Quang Tree, there were not enough helicopters to get everyone out. So most of 1st Platoon, including Larry Lewis and several others, stayed behind that night.
There was only 2 helicopters there transporting our company.
Bill Purcell, Gary Eichler, John Legato, Sergeant Gonzalez, along with most of 2nd and 3rd Platoon, went to Fubai. And that night was the start of what we now know was the Tet Offensive. The morning of January 31st, 1968, those Alpha 11 Marines were the first sent away after the city was taken by NVA troops at the start of Tet.
I see a sign that says, Way. Of course, we didn't know how to pronounce it because we were calling it Hugh. Hey, we're going to Hugh. Where the hell's Hugh? I never heard of Hugh. So heading up to Hugh, actually Way, and we get bombarded with small arms fire and M79 grenade launcher fire and rocket fire.
This fight in a way would stay with these Marines for the rest of their lives.
People were wounded all over the street. And our corpsmen, 2 of our corpsmen were killed. We were down to 1 corpsman.
This is also the fight that would put Sergeant Alfredo Gonzalez's name in history books and on the walls of museums to this day.
So the Gunny called me up and he said, you got language school, you stay with me.
The Gunny there, that's John Canley. You heard about him earlier in this episode. He was a gunnery sergeant during the war, retired a sergeant major.
We got hit in an ambush. We couldn't get into Way because what happened is machine guns opened up from the north. We were traveling north. And to our east was an open rice paddy. And to our west, they were hitting us with automatic weapons and RPGs. And we couldn't get back to Fubai. So what happened is Canley and Gonzalez jumped into this open rice paddy. And they had law rockets and hand grenades. And they maneuvered themselves. Thank God it was raining. We were in the monsoons and there was water. But they would be in the water. They would shoot towards. They had to eliminate these northern machine guns because we were in a crossfire. And they leapt over these mud swales. And they would shoot and fire and, So they got within 20 yards and eliminated them with hand grenades.
Roughly 2/3 of Sergeant Gonzalez's Medal of Honor citation details events that happened during the fight to get into Way, including this regarding the story that you just heard. Quote, though fully aware of the danger involved, he moved to the fire-swept road and destroyed the hostile position.
What happened is Gunny wrote up Gonzalez.
When Alpha 11 was ambushed going into Way, there was only one officer with them at that time, their company commander. He was wounded earlier in the fight, so he was not there when Sergeant Gonzalez and Gunnery Sergeant Canley took out the bunker. So Gunny Canley was the highest-ranking Marine in that part of the fight. Retired Marine Corps General Ray Smith took over as company commander when he arrived in Way on February 2nd. General Smith told me when he and Gunnery Sergeant Canley met after Way to discuss combat decorations for the company. Gunny Canley only told Ray Smith what Gonzalez did. John Canley never mentioned what he did.
And then it wasn't until 50 years later or 40 years when we would meet. And I could remember Gunny would walk into a room, we would have a reunion, and all conversations would stop and they'd all gravitate. And I'm listening. And I said to myself, this guy never got anything. He got nominated for a Navy Cross and they lost the paperwork twice. He finally got it years later, but he never got what he deserved.
For decades after the war, when the story of the fight to get into Way was written about in books and other places, many times the narrative of the Alpha Company Marines taking out that bunker was left out. And other times when what happened at the bunker was written about, John Canley's role was not included in those tellings. But the people who saw what happened or heard the story after the fact never forgot what the Gunny did in that moment or during the rest of the battle.
So they got within 20 yards and eliminated them with hand grenades. But that never got on paper. And the reason it didn't get on paper is we were just enlisted guys. I didn't know about medals. We didn't know, and we didn't give a shit about. We just wanted to go home.
John Legato and other Alpha 11 Marines worked for years to get their friend the Gunny the honor that he rightly deserved. In December 2017, just a couple months shy of 50 years after the battle, Sergeant Major John Canley's Navy Cross was upgraded to the Medal of Honor. I'll tell you more about John Canley in a future episode. Sergeant Alfredo Gonzalez's actions on that first day at Way were truly nothing short of legendary.
Tough as nails, took crap from nobody, and really he took care of the platoon.
We thought the world of Sergeant Gonzalez.
He was wounded 2 or 3 times that first day, and he stayed with us.
His Medal of Honor citation says Sergeant Gonzalez was seriously wounded again on February 3rd. The citation says, quote, he steadfastly refused medical treatment and continued to supervise his men and lead the attack, close quote.
Next day, the 4th of February.
February the 4th.
There was a school that was totally occupied by the NVA.
Were you in the school the day that Sergeant Gonzalez was hit?
Yeah.
We went into the Joan of Arc school.
The Joan of Arc school building.
The school, the St. Joan of Arc.
We had a hell of a time just getting across that street.
The NVA soldiers, they were in all the buildings. They were on the rooftops. They were on both sides of you, and they just opened up everywhere.
Now, to get into the Joan of Arc school, you went through an administration building, right? Small. Then you went through one door, out the back door, got the back door into a courtyard.
A big open courtyard in the middle. And it was buildings, on all 4 sides. We had occupied the side that was the closest to the MACV compound. We had taken that.
And it was like a tunnel that went under the second level of the one side of the east side of the building. On the outside that tunnel, there were columns supporting the edge of the second floor. Between those columns, every 8 feet, there was 3 or 4 feet of sandbags.
And we were under heavy attack.
It was an ambush, and they had RPG positions, maybe 3 or 4, and we had to get past that.
Opposite us was a 1-story piece of the building where the NVA were, and we were taking a lot of fire. So I got up on the second floor of a stairwell, and I was firing out a window.
Sergeant Gonzalez was in the corner office, if you will, or classroom, I guess it was, in the corner of this courtyard, and he was firing Law's rockets across the courtyard.
You talk about, bravery, and he was wounded, bleeding, and angry, which is a dangerous thing for the enemy, for a Marine to be wounded, dirty, and pissed.
Sergeant Gonzalez was running back and forth between those columns, and he was firing Laws. They were rocket-propelled grenades. And I saw a flash come out of the window that I was firing at.
They turned around and fired an RPG back at him.
I knew it was a rocket. So I yelled to my guys, the rocket, get down. So we got down, the rocket arc low and hit G.
Hit him right in the chest.
I was in the second floor of the Joan of Arc building when I saw the rocket that was fired and hit Sergeant Gonzalez. And several of us ran from second floor down to the first.
I could hear him moaning, calling for help, and I started screaming for the corpsman. And Doc Okonski got to him, and he was gone. That's a hell of a loss.
I wasn't on the same floor, but I saw him when they carried him out on the door.
That was a real devastating blow to all of us, because Sergeant Gonzalez was another one he was in the same mindset as the Gunny. We all looked up to him. He was hard-nosed, but he was a heck of a Marine, and he saved a lot of Marines' lives for the few days that he was there, and he took a lot of the NBA soldiers with him. But it was when he got hit, you could hear everybody holler, Gonzalez had been hit, And so I run downstairs, and they've got him on a door, and he's not in good shape. So they get him out of there, and they'd find out, that he died from that rocket blast there. And that just sent a kind of shock wave over a lot of us, After that, we were honored. We got to meet his mother, and she became a part of our group for the rest of her life till she died. She was 92, and she just passed away this past year. But she adopted us. She called us her boys, because Sergeant Gonzalez was her only son. We all loved her. She was a great lady.
So she would come to reunions and whatnot?
Oh yes, she was always there. We would make sure that she was there.
This series is reported, produced, recorded, engineered, and edited by me, Josh Roe. Most of the information in this series has come directly from the veterans who fought and survived the Battle for Hue. But I've also studied many materials to get a better understanding of the battle and the war as a whole. You can find a link to those materials in the show notes of this episode. Our series, The Battle That Changed Everything, is part of our podcast, Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This podcast is a production of News Channel 9, Fox Chattanooga, and Sinclair Broadcast Group Chattanooga. I hope you join me again real soon.